My sister helped my cheating ex-wife lie in court, now I'm forced to pay child support for a baby that's not even mine. I'll just come right out and say it, I can't stand my sister. I know that's harsh, and it definitely wasn't always like this. Na's my older sister, and for a long time growing up, I really looked up to her. She was someone I admired. But over the years, she's shown me just how awful a sister can truly be. Let me back up a bit. I was married to my ex-wife, Susie, for 2 years before I found out she'd been cheating on me. That discovery hit me like a freight train. I remember it so clearly, like it just happened yesterday. I was scrolling through her phone when I stumbled onto a string of messages, explicit ones, between her and her so-called best friend. A guy she'd known for 8 years. Susie always swore up and down that he was just a friend. She'd known him forever, and while I'll admit I got a little jealous sometimes, I chose to trust her. Our whole relationship was built on trust, or so I thought. So when I accidentally came across those sexually charged texts, it felt like the bottom dropped out of my world. I confronted her right away. She broke down crying, said it was a mistake, a one-time thing. She claimed that he meant nothing to her and promised to cut off contact. She even said she'd block him immediately and never speak to him again. I was angry, hurt more than I can explain, but deep down, I still wanted to believe her. We decided to try counseling. I was broken, and I needed to understand why it happened, and if there was anything left to save. In therapy, Susie seemed sincere. She owned up to her actions, expressed real remorse, and made a noticeable effort to earn back my trust. For a while, it even felt like we were making progress. She became more open, more attentive, and it felt like maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild what was lost. I chose to stay. I still loved her, and I wanted to believe in second chances. I told myself that people mess up, but they can grow, they can change. I held on to that hope. But yeah, you probably saw this coming, it turned out to be a huge mistake. Not too long after things seemed to be getting better, I caught wind that something wasn't right. Susie said she was going out with a coworker one evening, but the way she acted before leaving made me suspicious. Something about it didn't sit right. I couldn't shake the feeling she was lying. So, after she left, I decided to trust my gut and called that coworker, just to double-check. Turns out, the coworker had no clue what I was talking about. They weren't planning on meeting Susie that night. I was crushed. Everything inside me just sank. All signs pointed to her sneaking around again, probably with the same guy. There was no other reason to lie like that. I tried calling her several times, but she wouldn't answer a single call. Each minute that passed felt like an eternity, and my mind kept going to the worst possible places. When she finally came home, it was hours later and she was completely wasted. I'd been sitting on the couch all evening, stewing in a mess of anger and heartbreak, waiting. She walked in the door, drunk out of her mind, and didn't even look at me. She just wobbled past like I wasn't even there, heading straight to the bedroom. I sat there frozen, feeling like a ghost in my own home. Later, when I finally dragged myself to bed, she was already passed out, still in the same clothes from earlier, too drunk to even change. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand, and something in me snapped. I hesitated, but curiosity and dread took over. I leaned over to check it. The number on the screen? I knew it right away. It was him. And the message? It said, "That was so much fun, we should do this more often." He topped it off with a tongue emoji and a sweat drop. My stomach turned. No guy sends something like that, with those emojis, unless something intimate just happened. I felt physically sick. My thoughts were spiraling, imagining what they'd done while I sat at home thinking we were working things out. It was like getting stabbed in the chest and then twisted. I couldn't breathe, couldn't sleep. I just lay there all night, tossing and turning, my heart pounding and my brain stuck on repeat. By the time morning rolled around, one thing was clear: nothing about our marriage would ever be the same. When I confronted Susie again, she went into full defense mode. Instead of owning up to anything, she twisted everything around. She tried to make me the bad guy, said I was paranoid, that I had trust issues, and that calling her coworker was an invasion of privacy. She accused me of being controlling. It was classic gaslighting. And it hurt, but I wasn't about to let it slide. I brought up the message, and demanded an explanation. She just rolled her eyes, saying that's how she and her friends joked around. She even called me weird for reading too much into it. That pushed me over the edge. I told her straight up, if she didn't tell me the truth, I'd go to him directly and ask him myself. That got her attention. She immediately tensed up and started begging me not to reach out to him. I could see it in her face, she was scared. Eventually, after more back and forth, she finally broke. She admitted they had been wanting to see each other for a long time and that they had, in fact, made out after drinking. Her confession hit me like a punch to the gut. Every ounce of trust one had left shattered in that moment. And as if that wasn't enough, she tried to defend herself, saying our marriage had become boring and that she just needed something exciting in her life. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I told her straight it wasn't boredom that ruined things, it was her. Her lying, her cheating, her sneaking around. I reminded her that once she started sexting another man behind my back, we were never going to be normal again. No matter how much she wanted to downplay it, what she did destroyed everything. I stood my ground that day and didn't waver. I told Susie, straight up, that the blame for what happened lay entirely on her. She was the one who broke our vows, tore apart the trust we had spent years building. I let her know how disappointed I was, deeply disappointed, and I told her point blank that I had finally reached my limit. I couldn't just sweep everything under the rug and pretend things were fine. They weren't. When Susie realized how serious I was, she started begging. She pleaded for forgiveness, admitted she had problems she needed to work through, and said she still wanted to fix things between us. She kept repeating that she was willing to change, to fight for us. But no matter how many promises she made, I could feel it deep down, we were beyond repair. The trust was broken in a way that couldn't be patched up. Something inside me had snapped, and I knew sticking around would only drag out the inevitable. Her betrayal had carved out a divide between us that couldn't be closed, no matter how hard we tried. So I made the toughest call I've ever had to make. I asked her to move out of the house. Thankfully, we had signed a prenup before getting married, and at least that gave me some peace of mind knowing I wouldn't get hit with financial fallout during the divorce. She didn't take it well. She tried pulling every emotional card she had, even bringing in her friends to try and sway me, hoping they'd convince me to take her back. But I held firm. I stuck to my decision and, in the end, I told her she had to leave. It wasn't pretty, and I know it sounds harsh, but I was drowning in pain. This was the woman I thought I'd grow old with, and she left me feeling like a fool. After all of that, I turned to my family for support. I confided in my parents and my older sister, Na. I told them everything about the affair, the lies, the late-night betrayal. They were shocked. None of them had seen it coming, especially not from Susie. They stood by me and agreed that divorcing her was the right choice. Their support gave me at least some comfort during that hellish time. But Na? She acted different. While everyone else offered comfort or voiced anger on my behalf, she stayed quiet. Just oddly quiet. It stuck out. So I asked her what she thought, especially since she and Susie had always been close throughout our marriage. What she said left me stunned. Instead of validating the pain I was in or recognizing what Susie had done, Na asked if I was sure I wanted a divorce. She brought up how Susie didn't really have much family to fall back on, unlike me. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It felt like she was more worried about Susie's well-being than about the emotional wreckage I was left with. I didn't hold back. I told Na, firmly, that Susie's family situation wasn't my responsibility anymore. I reminded her that Susie didn't just make one mistake, she made repeated choices to cheat and lie. I said I didn't understand why she seemed more concerned about my cheating ex-wife than about me, her own brother. Na tried to explain herself. She said she was only thinking of me and didn't want me to make a rash decision that I'd regret later on. She told me she honestly thought Susie and I were perfect for each other, and that she was still in disbelief over the whole situation. She claimed that's why she was asking questions, because she wanted to be sure I was doing the right thing. I'll admit, I found her reaction strange, but I was emotionally wiped out by everything going on, so I didn't dwell on it too much. At the time, I was just trying to focus on getting through the divorce. At first, things seemed to be going in my favor. My lawyer felt confident, we had the prenup, and the facts were on my side. But then, everything turned upside down. Susie dropped a bomb on me. She said she was pregnant. I was blindsided. Completely caught off guard. I never saw it coming. It felt like life had found another way to twist the knife in my back. After dropping that on me, Susie and her lawyer suddenly wanted to stop the divorce proceedings. They argued that we should try to work things out, for the sake of the baby. Susie claimed she wanted our child to grow up in a traditional, two-parent household. I pushed back immediately. I told her I didn't care what she wanted anymore, I was done. And more importantly, I made it clear that I didn't believe for a second that the child was mine. She fired back, insisting that she hadn't slept with anyone else. She swore that the night she made out with her best friend, they didn't go any further. She said it was impossible for him to be the father. She kept pushing, saying we should fight for our marriage for the baby's future. But I wasn't buying it. To me, it was a desperate attempt to stall the divorce and manipulate me into staying. I knew she liked the lifestyle my money gave her, and I could see right through her act. I stood my ground. I told her the divorce was moving forward, no matter what. And once the baby was born, we'd do a paternity test to settle it. Susie's lawyer tried to flip that against me. They argued that since we were still legally married and Susie claimed she hadn't been with anyone else, I was automatically the legal father. They said they'd be going after me for child support. My lawyer fought back hard, saying that without a DNA test, those claims were nothing but assumptions. But the reality is, our legal system often fails to protect men in situations like this. And I had to brace myself for a messy fight. Not long after, Susie's lawyer followed through. They sued me for child support. They brought so-called evidence trying to prove that she hadn't been with anyone else and painted me as some cold-hearted control freak who was trying to dodge responsibility. But the worst part, the part that truly crushed me, was seeing my sister now sitting among the witnesses. At first, I thought she was there to support me, maybe just observe. But no. She testified against me. Now stood up there and told the court that she'd known Susie for years and couldn't believe Susie would ever cheat on me beyond a kiss. She vouched for her, made it sound like I was the one being paranoid and cruel. And just like that, my own sister sided with the woman who had broken me. According to my sister, Susie was still in love with me. Now went so far as to say she believed the baby was mine. Hearing my own sister side with Susie, after everything that had happened, was like another knife to the heart. Now I had seen firsthand how much I'd loved Susie, how deeply I was hurt by her betrayal, and yet there she was, standing by Susie's version of events. After court that day, I pulled Na aside. I was stunned and honestly felt betrayed. I asked her how she could do that to me, how she could testify in a way that could trap me into financially supporting a child I didn't even know was mine. Her response? She stood by her decision, told me she truly believed she was doing what was right, and said that one day I'd come to see that for myself. I couldn't hold back. I raised my voice. I was furious, disgusted, and deeply hurt. I told her she had thrown me under the bus, and now I might be forced to pay for a child whose paternity hadn't even been proven. But Na wouldn't budge. She accused me of being cold-hearted toward an unborn baby, said I needed to think about the kind of financial burden Susie would face if I didn't step up. Then she said something that really stuck with me. She claimed I wouldn't understand her point of view because I didn't have maternal instincts. According to her, helping with the child's expenses was the bare minimum I should be doing. Hearing that made me feel used, like I was being emotionally blackmailed. I couldn't wrap my head around why she was more focused on Susie's financial struggles than the emotional wreckage I was going through. My parents were just as shocked. They told Na point blank that she had no business testifying against her own brother, especially without telling me first. But at that point, the damage was already done. The court viewed my sister's testimony as solid proof that Susie might be telling the truth, that I was just trying to dodge responsibility. Because of that, the judge ruled in Susie's favor. I was legally ordered to pay child support until the boy turned 18. I was livid. Absolutely devastated. My lawyer and I did everything we could, but nothing we presented seemed to change the court's decision. We were boxed in, and the law wasn't on our side. It's been a while now since the divorce. Every month, I send out that child support payment for a boy who looks nothing like me, and for whom a paternity test confirmed I'm not the father. But none of that matters, not in the eyes of the court. Since Susie was pregnant while we were still legally married, the law says the child is mine, regardless of what science says. And that, right there, is why my anger toward my sister has only grown over time. In fact, I now resent her even more than I do Susie. I fully blame Na for the mess I'm stuck in. If she had kept quiet or supported me instead of stabbing me in the back, none of this would have happened. I've cut off all contact with her. I refuse to even acknowledge her at family gatherings. My parents have asked me more than once to forgive her and move on, but I can't. And honestly, most of the family understands. Several of my cousins and relatives feel the same way. They've distanced themselves from Na too. She's complained to our parents that I've turned everyone against her. She says I'm isolating her and making her a villain. But the truth is, nobody's buying into her sob story anymore. People see through it. She keeps trying to justify what she did by saying she was only thinking about the child's future, but nobody's listening. Last year, she married her longtime boyfriend, Joshua. I got an invitation, but I didn't go. Didn't even think about it. And from what I heard later, I wasn't the only one who skipped it. A good number of family members didn't attend, which apparently really upset Na. After the wedding, I heard from my parents that she and Joshua had been trying to have a baby. They were excited about the idea of a grandchild from their own bloodline, and I tried to be happy for them, but I kept my distance. I wasn't ready to pretend things were normal. Not long ago, I had to travel for a work conference in a nearby town. It was hosted by my company, and after everything wrapped up, a few co-workers and I decided to hang out at the hotel bar to unwind. That's when I saw her, my sister. Na was sitting at the bar with an older man. She hadn't spotted me, and I made sure it stayed that way. I was curious and honestly a bit suspicious. What was she doing out late at a bar in another town, flirting with a man who definitely wasn't her husband? I watched from a distance as she leaned in close and whispered something to the guy. He laughed, and the two of them looked very comfortable with each other. Something about the way they interacted felt way too familiar to be innocent. Before I even realized what I was doing, I pulled out my phone and took a few pictures. I made sure to get clear shots of both her face and his. I didn't want there to be any doubt about what I saw. I kept watching them. The way they smiled, the way they kept touching each other's arms, it was obvious. Then, after about an hour, the man made a motion toward the elevator and I nodded. She got up and followed him. It hit me right then and there, my sister was about to cheat on her husband. A part of me wanted to yell at her, call her out right there in front of everyone. But another part of me remembered what it felt like to be the one left in the dark. Cheaters don't change, not until they're forced to face the consequences. So I stayed quiet. When I got home, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let Joshua go through what I had gone through. He deserved the truth. So I found him on Facebook and sent him a friend request. A few hours later, I saw that he had accepted. Without wasting time, I messaged him. I introduced myself as Na's brother and told him that we needed to talk. I asked him not to mention our conversation to my sister, and I left him my number so he could call me privately. So, after sending Joshua my number, I waited anxious, hoping he'd actually call and be open to hearing me out. Thankfully, he did. Just a few minutes later, the phone rang. He sounded polite, but I could tell he was curious and maybe a little cautious about why I had reached out. He told me he already knew who I was, that Na and my parents had mentioned me before, but he was surprised I was contacting him after all this time. I started by apologizing for not attending their wedding and said I was sorry that our first real conversation was happening under these circumstances. Then, he asked me point blank what was going on. So I told him. I explained that I'd seen Na at a hotel bar while I was in town for a work conference. She was there with an older man, and their behavior made it pretty obvious something was going on. I didn't use the word cheating right away, mainly because I didn't know what kind of relationship they had. Maybe they had an open marriage or some kind of agreement, and I didn't want to make assumptions. But the more I described what I'd seen, the more Joshua started asking questions. What was she wearing? How close were they? Did I know who the guy was? I could tell he was shaken. So, to back up what I was saying, I told him I had actually taken pictures of Na with the man. I'd done it because I couldn't believe what I was seeing myself and wanted to be sure I had proof. I sent him the photos right then and there. There was a long pause after he saw them. I could hear the weight of it in his silence. Finally, he spoke. He thanked me. Genuinely. Then he asked something that caught me off guard. He said, "Why would you go out of your way to help me? I mean, you and I barely know each other, and you don't even talk to Na anymore." His question hit something deep. So I told him the truth. I told him I had once been in his shoes. That my ex-wife, Susie, had betrayed me. And that Na, my own sister, had made it worse by testifying against me in court, helping Susie trap me into paying child support for a child who, to this day, I know isn't mine. I laid it all out. Joshua was quiet after that. Then he said something that made my blood boil. He told me that Na had painted a completely different version of events. According to her, Susie and I had a failing marriage, had stopped being intimate, and Susie had made one mistake, just one, and I had overreacted by divorcing her. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I set the record straight real fast. I told him Susie had cheated on me twice, not once. And that it wasn't just one little mistake, it was a pattern of lies, betrayal, and manipulation. I told him exactly how Na had backed Susie in court and helped make my life a living hell. To my relief, Joshua believed me. He thanked me again and said he had no intention of staying with someone who had been unfaithful. He said he'd be having a serious conversation with Na. Over the next few days, my phone lit up constantly. My parents were furious. They said I had ruined Na's life, that I had no business interfering in her marriage. They blamed me for the fact that she was now facing a divorce and reminded me, again and again, how disappointed they were that they might not get a grandchild from her. I'd had enough. I told them I wasn't the one who destroyed Na's marriage, she did that all on her own. And maybe, instead of obsessing over becoming grandparents, they should focus on teaching their daughter some basic decency and loyalty. Na, of course, didn't stay quiet either. She sent me a nasty text calling me a spiteful little boy who couldn't keep his nose out of other people's business. She even went as far as saying that Susie's cheating during my marriage was somehow justified and that I had deserved everything that happened to me. That message set me off. I was beyond angry. It took hours to calm myself down. But life has a funny way of evening the scales. Not long ago, I found out that Na is pregnant. She claims Joshua is the father, but he's not buying it. He's refused to take responsibility until the truth comes out. He reached out to me again and asked if I'd testify on his behalf when the case goes to court, since I had taken the photos. And I didn't hesitate, not even for a second. Not because I'm out for revenge, but because no man should be forced to live through what I did. Joshua deserves to know the truth and fight for his future with all the facts. Of course, my parents lost their minds over that. They've been calling and texting, telling me not to testify, saying family comes first. I almost laughed at the irony. Where was all this loyalty when Na testified against me? I'm standing by my decision. I will testify. Not to hurt Na, but to protect someone who didn't see it coming, just like I didn't. Update 1. I didn't expect the reactions to be so divided. I've seen a few women commenting under my post trying to guilt-trip me into backing Na even though she clearly cheated. Shame on them. Let me be clear, I wouldn't have had any problem paying child support if Susie had proven that the child was mine. But she didn't because she knew he wasn't. We weren't even sleeping together at the time. I only had one piece of evidence, a flirty, suggestive text, and the court still sided with her because of my sister's testimony. That's why I hold Na responsible. She helped trap me. And now, I won't stand by while she manipulates her husband the same way. If it turns out this baby is Joshua's, I'm sure he'll do the right thing. He's a decent guy. But until that's proven, he shouldn't be forced into paying child support while his wife's been out sleeping around. And no, Joshua and Na don't have a prenup. So yes, she'll probably get alimony. But child support? That's something I'm fighting to make sure only happens if he's the father. Update 2. Today, I took the stand and testified against my sister. I shared every detail of what I saw at the hotel bar. I submitted the photos I took. I could feel Na glaring at me the entire time, but I didn't look away. I stayed focused. Her lawyer tried to discredit me, said I had a vendetta. But the judge didn't throw out my testimony. It stayed on the record. I hope it helps Joshua. I hope it gives him a chance. Meanwhile, things with my parents have only gotten worse. My mom called me, crying, asking how I could go through with it. She said she and Dad had hoped I would change my mind, that I wouldn't go this far. I told her exactly how I felt. I reminded her that when I was betrayed, they didn't cry for me. They didn't fight for me. They forgave Na for testifying against me like it was no big deal. But now that she's facing consequences, suddenly, I'm the bad guy? I told her I was done. If she and Dad want to continue siding with Na, they can. But I'm out. I've stopped answering their calls and texts. I don't need that kind of betrayal in my life again. Update 3. Final update. Joshua was cleared. The court ruled that he is not responsible for child support. I know Na must be furious. But honestly, I feel relieved. At least one man was able to avoid the nightmare I went through. Let me also clear up a few final things, since people keep asking. No, I don't have a relationship with Susie's son, even though I still pay for him. If he ever reaches out to me one day, I'll tell him the truth about what his mother did. Yes, my parents and I are still not speaking, and truthfully, it's been peaceful without their constant nagging. No, Na hasn't confronted me since I testified. I think she's too embarrassed. Yes, she'll still be getting alimony from Joshua, unfortunately. We all knew that was likely. And no, my parents don't have anything to do with Susie's son. They know he's not mine. As for Na's child, I don't know if they'll accept that one either. Maybe they will. Maybe they won't. That's not my concern anymore. I've done what I needed to do. I stood up for myself and this time, for someone else too. That's all.